Welcome to Amadon Planet. Good talk, real learning, better teaching. I'm Joel Amadon. Let's get started. Today on episode 140, I'm joined by a regular visitor to Amadon Planet, Dr. Gary Williams. And it's pretty unique. He had an experience with a book, The Let Them Theory, and it was one of those things. It was kind of like when we talk about later on with the physical media of the episode, like, is it something as valuable that you would put it in somebody else's hands? And Gary, virtually, because we don't live near each other, put this book, The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, in my hands and said, hey, you should read this. And life being life, it took me a little bit, but I finally got a chance to read it, and a lot of things clicked and wanted to have this conversation. So this has been a very impactful book to Gary, as you're going to hear in our conversation. And we engage in a lengthy, hey, it's a podcast, whatever, conversation to deeply consider what this book speaks, not only to just being a better human, but also to better teaching. This is exactly why I wanted to host this podcast. And again, it is a long conversation and trying to think about how to edit it, but I'm like, there are tools out there that if you want to listen faster, you can do that. You can also at Spotify, you can see there's it's kind of broken up into chapters. You can jump into little things. But overall, I think I just got done listening to it. I think it's a great conversation. And it's one of those things that's why I wanted to do this podcast, is to share conversations like this where you're thinking about the how something as simple as the let them theory, and I know it's more than what just those two words, right? And we'll say it's a let them, there's a let me. We'll get into it in the conversation. But this kind of conversation is why I want to do this podcast. So before we dive in, though, if you enjoy Amadon Planet, the best way to support this work is to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It really helps others find these conversations. You can also share the podcast with a colleague. Reach out with ideas or questions by sending me a note to joel@amadonplanet.com or join my email list for updates and ways to engage further. Thanks for being a part of this gathering. Now, let's get into today's conversation with Dr. Gary Williams on Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory. Hey, Gary, welcome back to Amadon Planet. How are you?
I'm great, Joel. How are you? It's so wonderful to see you.
I'm good. We're talking. We were talking about AI tools and whatnot, which might preview a future episode. But I've been using it to really like hone in on what I'm getting at, and some people might notice some like changes in artwork and stuff. But hey, here on Amadon Planet, we're about good talk, real learning, and better teaching.
Love the tagline. Yeah. It's really good.
That's right. So people are gonna hear that a lot and see it a lot.
That's good.
I thought that kind of boils it down, and that's why I think that's why I like doing this. And I think going back to our time at Badger Boy State after reffing a maybe slightly abbreviated football games and
Operation TikTok,
we would have some great conversations. And so we're going to talk about go ahead.
It's funny that so before we start, I wanted to say I was on a run just before this, and I was getting myself ready. I was listening to a Mel Robbins podcast about her book. Not to foreshadow, but to foreshadow. I think people know what this is going to be about. So, and then I was like, oh my gosh, how many years have I known Joel? I think we're over 30.
Holy cow. Well,
it's got to be close to 35 years. I mean, you were what, 17, 18 at the time?
I would have probably, senior year. I mean, I probably knew you at Boy State when I was there as a 17-year-old. I was 18, so we're probably 29 years because I'm 47 now.
Yeah. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
3 decades of friendship. So before we
start, a lot of hair follicles since then.
A lot. First, I want to say thank you, because you have been with me all 30 years, despite my failures, despite my troubles, despite my being now a recovering educator, so to speak, who didn't have this book soon enough.
Yeah.
And so thank you. And thank you for what you do. And I don't think you realize like the audience and the impact that you're making. The second thing I want to say is Mel Robbins, if you're listening to us, this is homage. Like this is the best flattery in the world is is literally taking somebody's stuff, but there's no way that any of us could do justice to her authenticity, her genuineness, and the person that she is. So, Mel, I just want you to know as you're listening to our podcast that everything we do is purely out of love for what you do and hoping that we can introduce your materials, your books, your podcasts, everything to Joel's audience of educators and others that are listening that may not have come across what you do. Because I think what you do is so phenomenal, and I hope we do you justice.
Yeah, I mean, and that I'll be honest, Gary. You shared. I don't know if you shared the link, or I think we're in the talk with the three amigos with Bobby, like having a little conversation, and maybe you mentioned this book, and then I saw it was on sale and like grabbed it, showed up then finally got around to reading it, and because of the busyness of life, and it was amazing. And so, like, I mean, I think that's the point of we talk about books on here. I mean, this is not a book report. It's a conversation. It's about you found so much value and you're like, hey, Joel, I think you should pick it up. And then I'm fine. I'm like, oh, I'm seeing some things that are meaningful. And so, and then I don't know, the whole point of this podcast, Good Talk, Real Learning, Better Teaching, is like to thinking about rather than just providing information, because anyone can like tweet out a link to a book, but it's like, hey, two guys like processing what this book has to offer for where we're at in our context, and hopefully that offers value to someone else. But yes, thank you to Mel Robbins for putting a book together, putting it out into the world that obviously is meaningful. And hey, Mel, like and subscribe, share with your friends.
Well, yes, like and subscribe us. It's interesting because you often you have a very good kind of format, and I think for me in terms of just getting into this, this book. I didn't burn out after 25 years of higher education or education in general. I didn't burn out because of a lack of passion. I burned out because I tried to over control my environments and I stopped staying in my lane. And I believed so strongly because most of us that get into education, most of us that get into it somewhat altruistically, right? Like we believe that we're a helper. But I was a fool for believing that leadership meant that I had to absorb everyone else's pressure, that I had to manage all these perceptions, and that I had to prevent people from feeling disappointed. And at the end of the day, I really thought that responsibility, that a good leader meant that I had to carry all of that to myself. And it just literally dragged me down to a very difficult place. Now looking back, in a different, in my second career, so to speak, I'm very thankful for the learnings that I have. And I am a much better, what's probably the most important thing today is that this philosophy has made me a better human and a better dad and a better husband and then a better professional. And a better friend, like a better human first.
Yeah.
And now a professional. And I had those things reversed. I was so focused on being this professional that I hurt myself. I hurt people around me. I hurt my family. Because I became that bitter person that, and in this book, Mel, I wish you had written it 20 years ago, but she was going through her same journey to lead to this place. And she believed, and I heard her on this podcast I just listened to today, she believes in tears, like she was in tears saying, I was called to bring this message. And I really believe that we all are on this journey. And whenever the call happens, that the message gets us, that's the key, right? We have to let me hear the message. And when you allow that to start to happen, you really start to transform yourself.
That's Gary, you're I love the vulnerability that you're bringing to this. But let's hold on for it. So yeah, obviously we're talking about the Let Them Theory book by Mel Robbins. Obviously we're doing that. But Gary, like just to catch people up, like if someone's going to say like, "Hey, Gary, what do you do?" How are you answering that question today?
I actually I tell people I am literally back to where I started. My very first job out of college was a football coach, college football coach and an academic advisor. And actually, right before that was a hall director.
Yeah.
I mixed, two things that were not mixable.
Yeah.
There was this, jock and an educator perspective, right? And now after, a career in higher education and then eventually kind of really struggling at my last few years as a director of athletics and a vice president, um, I'm literally today back doing exactly what I think I know was called to do,
Mm.
which is work one-on-one with hiring managers and clients and companies and candidates looking for jobs, trying to help them make meaning out of their job search and also try to help them make meaning out of the vehicle that they're driving in terms of life. Like,
Yeah.
a job is, I try to use the analogy like a job is a lot like a rented vehicle. We're renting it for a certain period of time, and it is a means to get us from point A to wherever B is. And we take lots of different paths to get there, right? But eventually we all desire to either have a nice house, pay, go on really nice trips, have a great retirement, whatever B becomes. Our our job is a car that we're driving to help us get there. The unfortunate part is oftentimes we run out of gas because we don't take care of the car or we think that that car can do things it really shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And so I've been very fortunate to be with a really great group firm out of Milwaukee, and I do executive recruiting. I also do some individual coaching, and then I volunteer for an organization here in the Dayton, Ohio area where I do workforce development program. In fact, I did one today for people who are incarcerated and are looking for a second chance. And it reminds me every day of the journey that I hit when I hit rock bottom and needed someone to pick me up. And so I found this organization and I use it to help me remind and center myself that I may be in front of them, right? I might be a vice president, PhD kind of person, but then I'm just like them.
Yeah.
And that journey, that fall from grace, everyone needs a second chance. Some aren't fortunate enough to get it, but others that do, we need to take advantage of it. And that's where this book for me is so powerful because it is about giving yourself a second chance to really look at the energy that you have to expend on things that you truly can control versus the things that you allow to control you.
Mm. I had never, like the, when you talking about, well, the things that you do, I mean, just the car that you are is made for doing what you just described doing. Like and again, going back to like us having those conversations at Boys State and like seeing how you would work with, young men at Boys State. And then, obviously, oh, by the way, what kind of wide receiver were you? Were like, were you a grinder? Were you like a possession sort of guy, like a short, like across the middle?
Yeah,
like,
I was was not built for speed. I can tell you, I can tell you that much. Yes. No, I was definitely the one that was just kind of like the 5 to 10 yard kind of guy that, but
good button hook man. Great button hook.
Good. I loved. We used to run a route called the squirrel route, which is you fake going out and then you come in, or you fake going in and you go out. And so because I would never beat someone with my speed, so I had to use my
shifty.
I had to use my Jedi mind tricks. It's where I started learning about my Jedi mind tricks. Yeah, that's for sure.
Nice.
So
nice, but also too, like, sorry, the aside, but
that is good.
But I think my maybe this is why our relationship is there, because
Mm-hmm.
my dad also is a probation agent, that
Yes.
like probation parole, and like
Mm-hmm.
trying to, like people made a mistake. And so how do
Yep.
you feel, how do we try to, again, we're not cashing in our chips. Like how do we help them take that next step in life, that they've paid the price, they had to do the time, and now how do we help them continue on? And so, yeah, I really
Yeah, and
appreciate that.
I think bringing up probation officers, teachers, educators,
Mm-hmm.
all the service kind of industries, like,
Yeah.
you know, educators especially, they're praised for their self-sacrifice. Um, However, oftentimes they're called to overfunction,
Mm.
over-deliver,
Yeah.
absorb things that, you know, they're they're always meant to absorb. When the budget crisis hits, they still have to give as much as they can and still teach at the level, despite maybe not having, the tools that they really need.
Right.
Um, they're fixers, they're rescuers, but the tension that rises from there, that this book helps us understand better, is that there's a bit of an illusion between the dedication we bring, like this sense of duty, that really isn't within our control
Yeah.
or in the lane that we're supposed to be in. And no matter how hard we try, the book reminds us there is one absolute thing we cannot control,
Mm-hmm.
and that is another human being.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and I think that's when we were talking about like some of the questions, like who is this book in conversation with?
Hmm.
And I wrote down anyone with a locus of control that they believe is bigger than it actually is. Right.
But
Like,
that's a hard thing though, Joel.
yeah.
That
Oh, heck yeah.
that takes an amazing amount of stuff. Like, I was also thinking about this today when I was reflecting about this. Like, and we all like to think we're emotionally intelligent, like we
Mm-hmm.
really are. But are we really, if we can't control our emotions, or
Yeah.
we can't have an honest conversation? And so, I would have told you I'm like, I think of myself as totally emotionally controlled. My last 5 years of education was a train wreck. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to look up dumpster fire in the dictionary, like, it would have been the microcosm of what I was, over my head, trying to do things that it was a lack of self-esteem, trying to prove people that I could do something. I was awful. Like, I mean, absolutely awful. And it affected so many things. And now looking back on it, I'm like, I was emotionally out of control. And
Mm-hmm.
Mel Robbins tells us, if there's one thing we truly can't control, which is someone else, there are three things we can control. That's what we think, what we act or choose not to act, and the emotional control that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, if I were a patient of hers, she would have been like, you are emotionally out of control. And yet I was teaching sports psychology, I was teaching education, I was
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
this, and I was awful, like awful, because I had become that veteran person who was really exhausted trying to prove to other people, like, there's a reason why we're supposed to be educators, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
isn't supposed to be about a scoreboard, or it's not supposed to be about winning, or and all of those things. And I exhausted myself over things that were completely out of my control.
I wonder too, Gary, if, because we had lots of conversations before you were in that stage, where we would talk about like the things that you saw other leaders doing, and it's probably like, oh wow, like the tables got turned on you.
Hmm.
Like the
They did.
yeah, the person that gosh, you were hilarious with it. Like the person that's wants you to build fires in your huts, but then is like getting angry because there's smoke coming out of the hut. Like, what's up with
I
all the
know.
smoke?
How come the
Like,
smoke's coming out of the
yeah,
hut?
yeah, like you can't
Yeah.
control. Like trying to think of like what is under. So, but I think that is true when you look back at and you talked about it before, like the industry where you're supposed to like be pouring into others, and
Hmm.
it's like all that you can do, and it's like then coming down and boiling down, like, hey, here's actually what is in the let me category, like
Yep.
those things that you can do, can take care of. So,
Yeah,
um,
and I think when you look at the real learning of this book, like what does this book help you see?
mhm.
I think the number one thing is that letting them is choosing peace over power, but it's not becoming a doormat.
Yeah,
And that is another fatal mistake that I made, which was, and um, I chose withdrawal. Like, oh, well, I'm just not going to care about this, or I'm not going to give a rat about this, or
yeah,
I'm going to, and it was like a child pouting in the corner. So I wouldn't talk to people, or I would withdraw, and people would be, "What's wrong, Gary?" "Oh, nothing." And it was a completely awful way of actually going about my day. But I'm telling you right now, there are people listening to this podcast who know teachers, who know administrators, who know colleagues who are in a classroom that are acting that way. Well, I'm just not going to care. I'm just going to do my thing. And they they choose to completely withdraw, which is not what Mel Robbins is telling us.
yeah,
She's saying while we need to disengage, we have to reclaim the agency and remember why we're there. So you can withdraw. Okay, so be it. That's your way of proving to the administrators that they don't know what they're talking about. But what about those kids every day that are in? It's impossible for us to play this game of, oh, in one part I'm doing a withdrawal and that's going to come out in your teaching. It
yeah,
comes out as an administrator. It comes
mhm.
out in the way you act at home. And that disingenuousness is exactly where the traps lie, where this isn't about becoming a doormat. This is literally about, okay, if I think of me and my energy as a host, there are these viruses that are coming my way.
Yeah,
How do I equip myself to try to stay healthy?
yeah,
Or maybe you think of it like a bank account. Like I only have so much money I can invest. So why would I pay money into things where I know the return isn't there?
yeah,
When the reality of the situation is, like I only have a finite amount of money, aka life, aka energy. And one of the things this book teaches us is that we as educators slash givers, we are completely susceptible to getting hijacked, to getting beat down where we let our guard down. And that I can tell you from experience is exactly what happened to me. I let those forces beat me down. And then I started making fatal mistakes in other things that I would have never made before. But I allowed that to happen and then it cascaded. And so I think
well,
this book can help someone really understand that discomfort of letting them, but also letting you be an agent is the exact thing you need for growth.
yeah. And I think you're right on the money there. And one thing I forgot to mention before is I love is a pocket-sized philosophy, something you can carry with you. I think that's something that's so powerful here because
Hmm.
Mel Robbins talks about the first, like the was it the 5 second rule or something that she first got started with things, but
Yeah.
now this with the let them, like, I mean, it's a 2 word mantra that you can't forget, right? And that's what I want my students is to carry with them, a little mantra of mine is I want
Hmm.
to lead people to love others through teaching, but something that is going to help you guide your decisions. And so let them is good. And one thing we could say later is like, yeah, it could be oversimplified as a as a danger. So that's why, hey, read the book. But what I think the how this stretched me, and I think you got right at it, was it's let them, because I mean, some could argue. I mean, what you could have. I mean, you kind of said it too. Is like I was letting them, but I wasn't letting me either.
Ah,
It's like
awesome.
trying to like let's establish the boundaries
Hmm.
of what I'm going to let them do. But hey, here's what I can come up to. So like, here's not this, big demilitarized zone, right? No, no, no. It's a fence. It's a line. It's here. So
Yeah.
I know exactly where my agency is, what I have the possibilities to do with those, 3 things that you talked about with the actions, actions or non-actions, right? Actions,
Hmm.
emotions, and then the thoughts, right? I know what I can do versus, okay, I've done that. Now let them, right? And so that's what's helped me with this is like, it's not a free for all. It's not a, like overestimating my locus of control. It's establishing the boundary, a healthy boundary that keeps I like what you're saying, like your bank account with something to give, especially when you're in something like us where we're dealing with people and we're pouring into people, and if there's nothing left to pour, then we're harming people, and that's what it comes down to.
Yes, and that is, I would beg anyone that's listening or that hears about that feels the same kind of dissonance that I felt in terms of, it almost became a toxicity from the inside out, right? And they're all too often, right? We are looking at, well, I only have to do this for 5 more years, right? Or I only have to do this, or I don't even, I wouldn't even know what else I would do. And the hurt that you're causing yourself and all those around you is, I will just tell you, is debilitating, and it's not fair to those around you. And well, at the same token, you have to ask yourself, like, how do I stop absorbing adult emotions? Like, that's one of the key things that I've learned.
Yeah.
And I was just actually coaching someone today, nonprofits, educational institution. We are unfortunate festers for tribalism and drama and things like that, right? It unfortunately seems to follow us. How do we set up the picket fence? You don't want to be like that person in the room that's like, I'm not going to participate in that conversation. Like, okay, so be it. The conversations are still happening.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to happen. And this isn't about being or ostracizing yourself either. This is really about just saying about compartmentalizing it, thinking about what box does this belong into, right? And I think about that so much right now in terms of how social media, politics, all of the things that are going on around us today that are overwhelming people to such a place. You can see it in other people, the way they're interacting, the hurt that we're almost causing to each other. It's our politics, our this, our that, all of those things, social media, all these influences. Unfortunately, right now, like, it feels like it's just seeped so far into our being that it's taken over, and we're almost like we're zombies, or we're having this out of body experience. And at some level, this book truly helped me realize, like, I don't it's not my job to judge you.
Yeah.
It's my job just to figure out where our conversation, our relationship belongs. What part of my box, how much of my bank account am I going to spend in this box? And we can all. They talked about this example. She talked about this example about, like, being in a line at a grocery store and just getting all angry because there's only all these self checkouts are open, only one. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Are you going to really walk out? I mean, maybe people do, but okay. So it's taking longer. The former me would have been torqued off, and I would have turned to the person next to me and complained and, tried to raise a fuss to see if I could get something. Now, I just kind of pull out my phone and I actually read, or I put an earbud in, which I know people think is bad because, but I'll put an earbud in while I'm shopping and I'll just listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, you have that time for a reason. Use it.
Yeah.
Find a way to find something positive out of it.
Yeah, that sort of ideas about, I don't have there's so many analogies that go through, like, you talk about sponge, but just like, I made the joke for my kids, like one of my kids really knows how to push buttons, but my other kids know how to just put their button as far towards that person as possible so that they can push it.
Yeah.
And it's like there's, hey, this idea of agency here, like these ideas, and how do you let situations work on you? And yeah, there's, I mean, a lot. We won't go into the examples of things that could get on you, but there's just making those choices and setting up those ideas about what is under your control. And I think
that you hit it. That's the key.
Yeah.
The choice that you make. Too many of us believe we don't have a choice. Oh, this is my lot in life. Oh, this is, I work for this kind of place, or this is this kind of leader. And we'd rather wallow in the mess than, talks about, you think about this book helps frame a lot of different things. If you never act as an agent for yourself, though, you only have one person to blame, and that's you.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you act as an agent for yourself and you set up a boundary and the other person doesn't respond, it is what it is.
Yeah.
They're not ready to respond. It's not that they're a bad person. It's not that they hate you. It's not that they think that they're better than you. I mean, maybe they do, which is fine, but let them think that.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay, because at some level, the point of this is you are not going to change them unless they're choosing to change themselves. So if you can't control them, the only thing in the equation you can change, math teacher, is you. Yeah. That's the variable. And that variable gets lost in this. I can change my viewpoint on this, my emotional energy, how much I'm putting into this. I can also change the fact that I'm not going to let it bog me down. I'm not going to let the fact that our school district doesn't get a levy, I'm not going to let that influence me still going in every day and giving everything I got.
Yeah. Well, and I was you were thinking about the language that this book gave towards something. So like my philosophy, and I've had this philosophy with grading for quite some time, is like, and I think especially nowadays with AI and all sorts of things, like people are like trying, what can I do so that no one is going to ever cheat in my class? And like people are cheating all the time, and it's like,
oh my gosh.
So like thinking about the let them, let me, and so for we do some readings and we're doing some reactions, and there's some things that I've done that allow folks to like respond within a document and stuff. It's called perusal. It's kind of cool little thing, but then. And it's like to try and say, hey, and so I have them do that, and then, but what am I doing to say like, hey, it's important. One, I'm going to reference this stuff. We're going to talk about these readings. So actually, there is importance to it. It's not just having you do it because we need to do it. We need to cover the textbook in quotation marks,
or teach to the test, or
right.
the state standards of whatever the case may be.
So there's value there. And then also saying like, hey, I've taken out tons from this course over the years because it wasn't of value, but this is the stuff at the center I think is valuable. So I want you to read it. And then if they don't read it, it's not like, oh, how do I make more policies and things to make sure that, they get appropriate, knocks down their grade, versus like, I'm guessing they don't not want to do the assignment. They don't want to not be successful. These are teachers, right? A lot of them, or most of them are teachers. And so like, hey, let me check in with them. And like, hey, I think these are valuable.
Yes.
And what's going on? And I mean, just those things have created such relationships with kids. 'Cause it's like, someone's like, yeah, my grandmother has Alzheimer's, and I'm trying, and my mom is trying to make more money, so I'm trying to work some extra job to help provide money for the house. And I'm like, jeepers, criminy, like, I know. Yeah, and then that allows me to share a little bit of my story with my family, and like, and so now we have this better relationship, and then we can be like, okay, here's how you can most efficiently get through these readings so you get the gist of it, right? And so now I'm coaching, or else too. Some of them, they haven't had a lot of coaching with time management. They've been able to, be fairly successful through the first 2 years, and they haven't had anything like this, or that any sort of like a regular sort of assignment. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, this is an indicator. I need to work on that, and especially when they go into student teaching, where the time is, their time management skills need to go to the 9, and they're at a 2, and like, hey, let's coach you up on that. And so like, the let me side is, hey, let me build better relationships so I can understand what's going on with how, I'm letting them, I'm all about, hey, I'm going to honor, if you're making a choice not to do the assignment, I'm going to honor that choice, but let me have some agency in figuring out, is there something I can do to make it as easy as possible for you to do what I'm asking you to do, right?
That's so powerful what you're saying.
That's I felt that here, like especially with the story of, was it the spouse that's not exercising and it's just killing the one spouse who is like, well, because it's killing them. They see like their like is not doing the things that they need to do to like live and be with them, and it's like it's hurting them. And so, what can they do? They're gonna put up opportunities. They're gonna cheer them on when they do something. They're gonna model good practice. Like everything that they're gonna do to like within their agency to help support them in making good choices. And I think that was I really enjoyed just kind of it's not just like it's the thought process of it, because I think that's what you said, the thoughts. Like, yes. What is the thinking behind it? It's not just, oh, I won't participate in gossip. I love that you put that in, like, I just never do that. It's like, well, I'm not going to, I would think Mel Robbins would probably say like, but I'm not going to lose that relationship. I might get in that conversation and maybe offer a comment or two that 100%. Might shape it and turn it, like not throwing it away.
Like letting it let the fire kind of kindle a little bit, and then turn and say, well, what do you think we can do about it? Like,
yeah.
What do you, because I mean, it's sadly, I mean, gossip and drama and all those kind of things, I mean, they have negative connotations, but they also are outlets for us as a human just to dump our stuff. And at some level,
connect too. Like, hey, yeah, we're going to talk about this.
We do,
because it's a way to connect to each other.
Yeah. But at the same token, if you never let you address it, let me compartmentalize this and think about what is one thing I can do to fix this situation or make this better. And sometimes you can't, you really cannot.
Yeah.
It's okay. But it doesn't mean it should affect the way that you look at someone or view someone or whatever the case may be. And I think, and again, I could care less on where anyone stands politically, but we've allowed all of that noise to use it as an excuse for why we should not treat people right or not treat people like humans.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot easier to just say, oh, all this is going on. And so therefore let me use it as an excuse to then push this to somebody else. And it's like, no. Like, I was thinking as I was running today about, like, when I really think about the teachers, like, if you really ask me what teachers were the most influential to you, I don't think I could tell you what they taught me from a book. But what they taught me as a human through their content was an indelible mark on the rest of it was literally pivot points.
Oh, yeah.
It was literally inflection points. And I can't think of the number of teachers who would try to prove you wrong. Like, put some obscure question on a test just because they told you to read chapter 4, and they're just going to put something in there just to prove to you that you didn't read chapter 4.
Close enough.
It's like, okay, or how many, unfortunately, this happens all too often sometimes in higher ed, where you walk into a classroom and you impart this wisdom because you are a historian or a philosopher or whatever, and you love this stuff, and you're expecting everyone to love it just because you know more than they do. That's not is that really what an educator is?
No. No.
No, an educator gets you so excited about something that you're like, I would have never, like, those were the teachers
Yeah.
that made the most impact. The person, I mean, I was in a religion class. I wasn't going to become a priest. I wasn't going to do it. But he challenged me in such a way uh, that I was like, oh, I'm gonna prove him I can do this. But he did it and he used religion, but I don't remember what we, but
Yeah.
here's what I remember. I remember getting an A minus and thinking to myself, I accomplished something. Like I did it. Like
Yeah.
I got a grade in a class from somebody who is a difficult grader, even though I don't know this content. And so, like, to me, this is kind of part of all of this, right? Which is, like, I, too often a student refuses to do work, right? What's the natural reaction?
They don't care.
Student, they
They
don't
don't
care.
like me. They don't care.
Yeah,
Right.
they don't care. They must, oh, I can't. Yeah. So what do? You negotiate, you take it personally, you talk about them in the teacher's lounge. Okay, well, how about you just say, okay, students, here's the expectation. And if you choose to do it, great. This is where it leads you. If you choose not to, here's where it's going to lead you. And then for you, you maintain your calm, you maintain your energy, you're not trying to rescue somebody who's not interested in being rescued. And you work to separate yourself. It's the Pareto principle, right? We
Hmm.
spend 80% of our time on 20% of the problem. We know this, we talk about this, and yet we do it every day. And it's like, why am I spending all this money trying to fix the 20% when I could be inspiring and engaging the largest portion?
Or, I mean, also then going back to the previous example, like, or ask the question, hey, why aren't you,
Yeah.
is anything going on? And like, yeah, just lost my dog, like what, like who knows? And still having understanding and still build a relationship. So like, even if like, what, or there's other things going on and they get a C, but even if they get a C, that doesn't mean that you can't have a great relationship with that person, because, hey, I like this class, but the assignments, I don't have time for them. I'm going to get a good enough grade to pass, which is good for me. And hey, and don't take that personally. like,
Uh,
you know?
I had a professor in college. I was taking a physics class. I had a professor in college, and she knew that at that point I was kind of too deep into chemistry as a major, and I really was more of a social scientist, but it was too deep into the major. And on top of it, I ended up earning a scholarship that I had to pick a science. I couldn't afford, I would never have been able to afford college without it. So I was kind of in this weird kind of situation. I remember sh Professor Murphy was her name, and I would fall asleep in class, and I would do, and she would just say to me, like, I can tell you're tired, but instead of yelling at me about being falling asleep, she's like, because you're an RA, you're a football player, you're doing this, you're in a fraternity, you're, all of these other outlets which are very meaningful to you. So basically she was like, what do we got to do to just get you through this class?
Mm.
I remember studying 24 hours for a test and got a 36 or something, which ended up meaning I was getting a B. And I would have, I was the most,
Touchdowns, baby.
it was. And so like we think about this all the time. Like we're so worried about a grade or grading. Like I remember when I was teaching, right? Like people would say, "Oh, you got to have everything on a bell curve. You got to make
Mm.
sure that you've got some students that fail." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, I want everyone to get an A."
Yeah.
And it's not because this is easy, but Joel, I used to stand up and be like, "Okay, I'm about to talk about something. This is going to be on the test. Like, I'm not gonna. This is not
Yeah.
sugarcoating anything. The reason it's on the test is because this is a really important concept. That's the reason it's on the test. It's not because I'm trying to trick you.
Yeah.
It's because these 20 concepts are the things I want you to take home with you
Yeah.
and use every single day."
Well, in the teaching education classes, like I teach elementary math methods class, and it's like if someone said, hey, some of your kids need to fail, like, oh, need to fail learning how to teach math to elementary students. That's the dumbest thing. Like,
Absolutely.
I'll let kids do as much work as possible so that they can get up to an A. I'd rather give, again, everyone an A, because I want everyone to have the skills and abilities necessary to teach elementary mathematics. And it's
100%. When we get in the real world, right?
Yeah.
And we put a training, like we'll do a training session or a safety presentation, or we'll do whatever in HR. It would be so counterintuitive if we built something and tried to make sure it fit in a bell curve to try to get them to fail.
Yeah. OSHA comes in saying, hey,
yeah,
20% need to fail.
I was like, I want you all to be safe.
Yeah.
And so, like, how can we think about our classrooms as this ecosystem of energy and enthusiasm about even obscure topics, but what's the point, right? I can't I cannot count the number of times I was in a math class and someone would be like, oh, you're gonna need this. No, I pull out a calculator all day long. Like, here's what I need, right? I need to understand conceptually what's going on.
Yeah.
But I also need to challenge myself and discipline myself and
solve
problems. I need to show my work. I was just in a presentation today where it was a workforce development project. And I said, you remember that math teacher that said, you got to show your work and you get mad? I'm like, well, you need to do it in a resume. The same thing. Show your work. Don't just say 1 + 1 = 2. Say, here's how I know it equals 2.
Mm-hmm.
Or in my case, what I deal with every day is, don't just tell someone that I'm good at taking out the garbage. No, I take out the garbage 3 times a day, and I've always been complimented. Like, how do you dig deeper?
Yeah.
Show your work.
Mm-hmm.
That concept is because I went to math class.
Yeah.
And I've now applied it to a real world setting. And I think we get just myopic in thinking like the world revolves around me as the source of this knowledge. Well, is that fair?
Well, there's the fence again, right? All right, I take out the garbage, right? Let them understand that, but let me put it in the best position possible.
Yeah.
And we'll let them make decisions about that information. But like, I take it out 3 times a day. I'm disciplined about it. I get complimented about the cleanliness of the spaces I'm put in charge of. Like all that sort of thing. But yeah, it boils down to then, here's a let them, here's a let me.
I mean, just think about, like, I remember, God bless Catholic school education, but I can remember days where people were a teacher or a nun, even God bless hers, they would say, you're going to end up being a garbage man if you don't get the. Well, you know what? I wish there were more garbage men.
Yeah.
Like, we're running out of them.
Yeah.
Because there's some negative connotation that if you're a garbage man, that you're unworthy. I'm like, school isn't for everyone. All of that stuff. Like, I'm not good at math. I'm not. I'm just not. And if you keep pounding it into my head that I have to be a mathematician, well, if I wanted to be, I would have been. But I'm not. I'm a social scientist. And this was the greatest part. This is probably where my journey started to falter, which was I kept trying to fit into everyone else's paradigm because I didn't want to disappoint them, when I was just disappointing myself all along the way by not just being honest and saying, let them, they're going to be disappointed. You know what? There are people who would die for someone to be disappointed in them, to have someone that cares enough about them to be disappointed.
We think about moving from ideas into practice. I think we've already been doing that. There's one thing that I wanted to talk about, because there's something that obviously there's been some policy changes and things that have happened in education land, and lots of lands, but in education land. And there's, so like the one thing that I was thinking about is like, how does this apply to someone who feels they're being put upon, right? Because of those sorts of things. And so they'll let them do that. I'm like, well, gosh, this is causing harm. There's like all this sorts of thing. And like, but this conversation has brought distillation to like this whole idea of let me, and like, okay, where, if they're letting them do that, and like, what is my agency? One article that I'm going to put a link to in the show notes is from Rochelle Gutierrez about critical insubordination. So it's like understanding what being knowledgeable about what are the policies and practices that are there, and like, okay, so what agency do I have? It's basically like, what agency do I have to still do what's right given what is happening? And so like,
that's hard.
Oh, it is hard, but like even like in the state of Mississippi, and I'll put a link to this, that there was a successful challenge of some of the anti-DEI stuff.
Sure.
There's a temporary, I don't know the current status of it, but I'll put a podcast episode with JT Thomas about it. But like, hey, that means I don't, at this point in time, I don't have to do a lot of changing to the types of teaching that I'm doing or what I'm talking about in my class because of that work, and so just having that sort of knowledge and like, so that critical insubordination I thought was the kind of the something with regards to that let me sort of piece.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I really love even just the concept of that, right? Which is, at some level, the only way growth happens is through dissonance, right? Like you don't grow muscles by lifting a 2-pound weight all the time, right? Like you've got to push yourself and make yourself uncomfortable, and you have to almost fail, right? And so, and one of the things I think that's probably the most challenging right now is just this, it's us versus them constant philosophy, whether it's teachers against administrators, administrators against, the Department of Education. I think one of the things this book really helps you do is realize that not every story has to have a villain.
Yeah.
So far too often we want our story to be good versus evil. And those are great stories, by the way. But is it really about that?
Yeah.
And I will tell you that I do not watch Hallmark movies. However, I think when it comes to especially the things that we do every day, the people that are going to make the biggest impact on other human beings, and I don't care whether it's in a classroom, as a garbage man, I don't care if it's or a recruiter in what I do, it's thinking about the story as a love story. How do I impart as much as I can to you and you to me, and how do we help each other continue to grow to get you where you need to be? So if we think about the story of our professional lives more like a love story, as opposed to a hero's journey, so to speak, where it's good versus evil, we're gonna be on that journey. And yes, evil is gonna be around us, and those villains are gonna appear, right? But do we really want to let them know what our kryptonite is?
Yeah.
Or do we want to find a way to just say, okay, like you be evil, you do you, boo. But I'm here, and this is a love story. And this is not, again, I really want to caution people. This is not Pollyannish. This is not bending over backwards for people and just giving up. This is not some fairy tale. But if we approached our work more like a love story, imagine not only the good that we could do, but the power that we could harness in each other versus always looking for a villain.
I like that. That reminds me of there's a book I want to do on the podcast eventually. Impact, I think it's called Impact with Integrity. It's about how to do good and not burn out. Basically, that was kind of the subtitle. But it talks about this drama triangle: hero, villain, victim. And when you think you're one of them, like you act in certain ways and you don't act in you're acting in an emotional way typically. And so try to stay out of the drama triangle. And you trying to, again, the good way of positioning that sort of same mindset of you know, let's get out of there. Let's get out of the
Hmm.
let's get out of the Marvel movie and get into the Hallmark movie. There we go.
Yeah.
They're,
I mean, here's the thing. I think about this all the time. Like in my industry, recruiters will spend an inordinate amount of time complaining about their clients. They don't know what don't know what they're looking for. They don't, they all of these things, right? It is so easy to get caught up in that. But at some level, right? Like if it were easy, they wouldn't need you.
yeah, yeah,
If it were easy, they
right.
wouldn't they
They wouldn't
wouldn't
be
be
coming to you. Yeah,
seeking
yeah,
out help.
yeah.
If it were simple, right? And so it's kind of like, although I will tell you, I disagree with this to a point, but it's like when people tell you you're uneducated when you swear. Like you and I both know,
You can
I
just put a little
I
extra
could,
mustard on something.
yeah,
Oh man.
I can put some mustard on things and ketchup and relish. But the
we
point of what they're saying is you're telling me you're not creative enough to come up with another way
mm,
than to choose a negative way to
yeah.
bring light to something.
The old Jerry Seinfeld adage. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, like I think about this all the time. It's like there's a point where you have a finite amount of things that you can do, but the challenge is in the creativity of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I approach those situations like, and 9 times out of 10, most times when somebody doesn't want to work with somebody, I end up working with them because I'm either a glutton for the punishment or I enjoy it. But I know I can't fix everything.
Yeah.
But what I can do is just continue to gather data and facts non-emotionally. And then at some point, you have to say, okay, but let me put the boundary up that says, I'm going to do this for another 30 days or a week, or I'm going to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we're going to, and more often than not, when you at least express that non-emotional data focused kind of argument, it's hard for people to argue with you.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of like all throughout this process, I think of three things. Is this really my problem to fix? Am I a help or am I trying to rescue somebody? And am I trying to actually own this myself or to help people become their own agent?
Yeah. Well, that gets her. I had something written next. It was like, how would you redesign in class a conversation or a task? We talk about here like celebrating the struggle, right? And
Yeah.
so like we need to have kids struggle. And so again, I think this allows bringing this into like a math classroom where I want to expose kids to problems, right? And so I'm going to create a great environment where they have kids to work with. They're going to have cooperative groups. We're going to have a great task, a group worthy task that they can solve together. That they need to have different pieces and things. But then I need to let them do it and not like, oh, they're struggling, like, oh, like throw them the life preserver, like that over rescuing where they don't get a chance to do it. But no, like, hey, I've created an environment for them to have a safe amount of productive struggle and that they will be better because of it. And yes, we might see some things that are a little bit off and things, but that's going to be interesting to have our conversation around whether we're talking about this mathematics. And so, yeah, I just, again, that idea of where do we draw the line
Hmm.
and provide and that people experience their own right, their own agency.
100%. I think so many people, again, it comes back to I loved your triangle of doom. So many people think that, I either have to be the hero or I'm the villain, or what was the third thing again? Hero,
Victim.
villain, victim.
Hero,
Okay,
villain, victim.
so we want to say, oh, like let's just use an example, like well, we have these standards we have to teach to, and that's causing me to have to change my career. Is it really? Like, I don't know. Like, I think it's easy to be the victim and say that, oh, we've got to teach to this. What? Really? because really at the end of the day, right? I don't want to belittle anything in terms of education, but what is the test really about? Like, what are we trying to teach? And at the end of the day, how fun is it to teach to a test?
Hmm.
It's not fun,
Yeah.
but rise above it. Let them worry about those scores. Let me rise above this.
Let me create an engaging place where
Let
kids
me
like
create
are
a
excited
place,
about learning. Yep.
absolutely, where they come in every day and they have fun failing. What if you gave a test on purpose where where you tried to actually get them to get so frustrated, and by failing you gave them an A?
Mm.
I gave a test like that once. I gave a true false 50 question test. All of them were true. It was in a sports psychology class. What was the moral of the story? The moral of the story was you have to work just as hard to make sure something's true as it is false.
Mm.
You have to work even harder to discipline your brain to trust yourself.
Mm.
And there are students, that was 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago. There are students today that say they have never forgotten that test.
Yeah.
They're like, it freaked me out. They and we talked about it. I said, and ironically, we were talking about in sports psychology, we were talking about mental discipline and emotional, you know, being able to manage stress, all of those types of things. And I said, so tell me what you learned. Like it didn't, I could have given him a test on anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be cruel, but through the test, we taught something.
The
The test
process.
was a vehicle.
Yeah. 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 And like, how often are we allowing kids to engage in the process, right? Or allowing
A
anyone to
hundred
engage.
percent.
I mean, that's.
What if
I,
we ask students, all right, based on everything that I've taught you, what do you think is going to be on the test?
mm,
What if we turned it on them? What if you turned this around? Instead of, oh, they're not engaged. Let them tell you, all right, we've been at these chapters for a month now. What do you think? What do you think is going to be on the test?
yeah.
What are some good questions that you think we should ask? Can you imagine them putting a process together of giving each other a test and then thinking through what that might mean and why did you put this on there or and just thinking through all of that.
Or even to like at the backside being like, all right, let's test the test. Let's look at it. Oh, it looks like
Yeah.
everyone got this one right. Like, that's me. It's my problem, right?
You know what? That is the a number one thing that I think is where this book could help someone is that instead of complaining that everyone doesn't get it or they weren't paying attention, let them fail the question, but let me reflect.
On why? Yeah.
Man, I wonder why everyone missed this.
Yeah.
What is it that we did or didn't do to help them understand it? Or even more importantly, is this topic really that important? Like, should it even been on the test?
Yeah.
I know that people could be listening to this and being like, you two are on another planet, but we this is a hard time to be a human right now.
Yeah.
And yet it's not. It is unbelievably hard because there's so much noise that's dragging us down, but we're also choosing to let it drag us down.
Yeah.
And how do we let them play in the band, but let me choose where my energy is going to go? Let me rise above. And I'm telling you, for me personally and professionally, I have never been happier. I haven't been this confident. I haven't been this successful in a long time. It is not because I'm smarter.
That's for
It's
sure.
not because I'm all of a sudden doing something different, other than I'm really controlling my emotions.
Nice. I don't want to, like, you always feel to poke it at the end, but when where the book falls short, or even maybe
Mm-hmm.
what the caution might be,
Yep.
if you just hand, because I think there is something about handing this book to somebody and like they're going to get something out of it.
Yep.
The one that I've said is feels incomplete. What feels incomplete about it? I think it should be called the Let Them uh, and Let Me. Like you really need them both,
Yes.
right? You really need them
Yeah.
both. But I understand why that doesn't kind of roll off the tongue.
Yeah. There's definitely, I would say, Joel, the first thing is it is easy if you just take it at face value. It's easy just to say like this sounds like you're just detaching and
Yeah.
it's a free for all. And I even think Mel Robbins herself would say like that's not the intent,
Right.
but you can easily get let them like
Yeah.
you can make a joke of it almost to the point where it's not meaningful. But because you have to be really, she's asking us to be very intentional with our thinking about this. Um, so you need a level of emotional maturity to be able to truly absorb this book and say to yourself, okay, I'm not giving up, but I've got to give away. In giving away some of this emotional baggage, I'm actually rising above this and I'm gaining power because I'm not getting caught down in the muck. The the other thing that I think is, really challenging is it's easy to say all these things, but what if you're in um and this is kind of the lens you bring, which is what if you have some deep systemic inequalities
Right.
in an educational system or in a city or a town, or you're in a really trauma heavy environment where, nuances do matter. And
Yeah.
sometimes you do need to think about that. You can't just let them because they may literally hurt themselves.
Right.
I think if you let it become apathy, it's you're misunderstanding the point. But if you're also not addressing the fact that we really do have some systemic inequalities that we've got to find a way to battle through. And I think that you can't just let them be
Yeah. Yeah.
inequalities.
Yeah. That's a good point. And so again, that brings back to probably the most powerful thing is like not letting emotions control, but then also then remembering your agency. And so, but yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Um, hey, where do you put this book? Core text, occasional flyby, seasonal return. I think this sounds like a core text for you.
It is. I I don't think there's a week that goes by that I don't reflect on the concept. Um, there isn't a week that goes by where I get frustrated and I fail or I let my emotions get the best of me that I don't say to myself, you better listen to one of these episodes, or you got to
Mm-hmm.
go back and listen.
Yeah.
Like, because you know what? We've trained our brains to be, we've, our media, our brains, it's all trained towards negativity. It is a lot more, there's much more glory in the drama and the negativity and being the victim than there is in any other role that you might play. And so it's okay. Like, I mean, like we're all in the
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
cauldron. I just I just got to a point where I was so low, and the only way out was to remember the times when I wasn't low, and that was when I was younger and I was more carefree,
Mm.
where I realized that I didn't even realize how much people were going to still be disappointed in me, but I didn't seem to actually allow it to fester in me.
Mm.
And just that piece of knowing, like, I got to stay the course. We all do. Caring deeply does not mean that you need to carry everything. Let them learn, let them feel, let them experience, let them fail, but let yourself, stay healthy enough so that you can actually keep imparting wisdom on others.
Caring deeply doesn't mean you're carrying everything.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Hey, before we land this conversation, I'd like to ask two things. One, what's something you've been learning lately that's shaping how you coach within your role?
Yeah.
And what's a piece of physical media that's been meaningful enough, so that book, album, movie, right? That's that you'd put it into someone else's hands.
Wasn't that I wasn't ready for those questions, but here's the thing. First thing, the first question, definitely AI right now. Like for me, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm this old dog at 53. I turned 53 in March.
Yeah.
This old dog loves this new trick of AI, and it has really challenged me to be a much better communicator, a much more disciplined thinker. Um, and so I definitely feel like, you know, that in and of itself has been, super inspiring. The the piece of media I rewatched, or I saw there's been a bunch of documentaries, but you just put a new documentary out on Netflix on the Miracle on Ice from the
Oh,
1980.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's such a feel good story, but the 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 real beauty of that documentary for me was in really understanding the depth of the disparity between the United States and Russia at the
Oh,
time
yeah. They're
in
pros.
terms of and and just the sheer desire. Um, the teacher, the coach, was hated by everyone.
Yeah.
They hated him.
Uh-huh.
And yet, in spite of that, they rose together, right? Now, you and I both know that that type of us versus them isn't healthy. But the point of it was hard work, discipline, and in their case, this unbelievable amount of stamina. They were going to just continue to come at people. And it was this idea about finding a creative way for David to beat Goliath. I don't know how many of us today could honestly look each other in the eye and say we're not in the same position with what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're a school district that doesn't have the same as the school district next door. Maybe we're in a classroom that doesn't even have the same as the classroom next to us. Maybe we're a recruiting firm that's smaller versus these large. We're all in a David and Goliath situation. And every one of those stories teaches us the smartest, the fastest, the bestest.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what wins.
Yeah.
What wins is work ethic, attitude, the things you bring. That's what overcomes huge mountains.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. So, Gary, people that want to keep learning with you, where should they look? LinkedIn, probably, right?
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. I've got a weekly Wednesday word that I put on LinkedIn.
Some themes, working through
that
some
has
themes.
Yeah, or some. I started as just words, and now it's turned into songs. But all of my learning is around things related to hiring and leadership, and just the everyday things that people go through in terms of trying to find the next thing for their career or their life. It's been very therapeutic for me. Many of the lessons I'm teaching are things that are honestly, I was like, oh man, I should have learned that myself. Um, but I have had a second chance, and you know, I'm sorry for all the people I hurt, when I wasn't at my best, but I'm really happy about the place I've gotten to.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to continue to try to be the very best version of myself that I can be. And it starts with being better at home.
Yeah.
And to myself, giving myself grace to not be perfect.
Well, I appreciate you, Gary, and I appreciate you taking the time to turned me onto this book, and two, for sharing this conversation with everyone, but also too, just thankful for your friendship.
Yeah. Well, you might have to do some editing on this one. We talked for a while, but I hope everyone that listened, again, I don't think we're here today to replace Mel Robbins or to speak on her behalf, but introduce you to her concepts. And I would just urge everyone to follow her and her wisdom. But at the end of the day, each of these little audiences that we have, it's important to introduce them to things that are meaningful, that matter. And so I hope we did her justice, and more importantly, did your audience justice.
Yeah. Well, and then I think we came up with a new WWE tag team called the Triangle of Doom. Possibly.
Triangle of Doom. We definitely did. Oh my gosh.
As well.
We could do. I used to do podcasts about wrestling, but I guess you want to stick to mathematics and teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
There's probably lessons to be learned. All right. Well, thanks, Gary. All right, there's my conversation with Dr. Gary Williams. This was a long one, folks, and but also this was because this was about a book. This makes the physical media of the episode, or basically the part of the show where I share an album, movie, or a book I've been listening to, watching, or reading. Hey, I'm going to do what Gary did. Gary put this book virtually into my hands. I want to put it into your hands, and there is links to the book in the show notes, which can be found at amazonplanet.com/episode 140. You can go to that link, you can pick it up, and not only will you be getting the book, you're also supporting the podcast and indie bookstores at the same time. So find that link in the show notes, again, at amazonplanet.com/episode 140. So that's it for today's conversation. Again, show notes are available at amazonplanet.com/episode 140. Thank you so much to Gary for sharing his time and expertise. Check out all the links in the show notes. And also there's a link to, or actually embedded one of his Wednesday word videos there. It's kind of fun to be connected to Gary and get those every Wednesday. He puts some thought and time into it, and some little bit of, I would say, Wisdom Wednesday through his words. So go ahead and check those out. Go ahead and check those out. Thanks to Matt Mifflin for the music in this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a colleague. It really helps more folks find these conversations. You can also reach out with ideas, questions. Maybe it's another book, just like Gary did, or opportunities. You can also share those by sending me a note to joel@amazonplanet.com, or join the email list to stay connected and keep the conversation going. Thanks again for spending time on Amazon Planet. Good talk, real learning, better teaching. Peace.